Okay, hi y'all, and thank y'all for joining us for our Beef Brunch news update on Tuesday, September 28th. Vince is not with us today, so I'm going to do a little bit of our Central and South Louisiana update that he provided earlier. I think hopefully everybody throughout the state's been enjoying the sunshine and slightly cooler weather over the past couple of weeks since we've been with y'all. He did say, mention that the calf markets have gotten a little softer just because of increased quantity of calves going in, those springboard calves. And I know Jason will talk about that a little bit more here coming up. I guess like with probably the rest of the state, he mentioned that we are getting that last little bit of hay up. Mostly, again, that sunshine and everything has allowed people to get one more cutting out there. So people have been working on that over the past week. And then the other big thing that he asked to mention that I know he's mentioned before is mosquitoes are just crazy. So just a reminder of a few things to control mosquitoes. If you can spray for them, great. If you can't, if you can clip vegetation, maybe plow up a little bit of a dry area, get rid of some of that forage, or build some area up kind of away from some forages to get them away from those mosquitoes. Those are a few things that you can look at to do to control those. So Lee, I will go ahead and turn it over to you for our Northwest region update.
Thank you, Ashley. Glad to be with y'all today. Hope y'all are enjoying this cooler weather as much as this fat man is, for sure. Much the same in the northwest part of the state. Fall's definitely here. These temperatures reaching down into the 50s, the morning lows down into the 50s. Boy, it's sure been a welcome respite. Flies are still terrible. Horse flies in particular, we saw a real bad outbreak of them early on in the summer and throughout the summer, and just casual observation, it seems like numbers had eased back a little bit, but some reason the last couple of weeks they've really seen a resurgence around this part of the state. Still fairly warm. Some folks are getting a little bit of rain, which was needed in our corner of the state. Much like Vince, the report he sent to Ashley, seen a lot of hay being made. It's kind of the last hoorah, last go round on haying, Got some people that are still trying to squeeze just a little bit of growth out of this last cutting before they clean up the fields. There's some producers out there that they're on their second cutting right now, and they're glad to be getting that. So it's just been a kind of a challenging hay year. I'm going to be honest with y'all, to say the least. Seems like every year is challenging in some way, but this year's been the hay. Fall cattle working's going on. Seeing a lot of folks working some herds of cattle, pregnancy checking some cattle, trying to get some of that herd health kind of chores checked off the list. With this cooler weather, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. I can tell you, we've been working cattle on and off, it seems like, for the last 2 weeks. Starting to see a few fall calving herds start putting some babies on the ground, round in spots. Some of those that, start calving in September kind of kicked it off a little bit, and that's good. We really I personally like the fall calving system. If you're ever want to visit about calving systems and setting one up, gosh, you can reach out to any one of us and we'll talk about it. And I sure don't mind telling you the benefits I see in fall calving, not knocking spring calving, so to speak, but really like the fall calving system, and we all can help you set that up. Talked to a producer on Saturday that lost a cow from Perilla mint, diagnosed by the vet that's what it was. They found a bunch of Perilla mint on the edge of a creek bank, and vet diagnosed it as that. So, gosh, it may seem like a broken record, but be scouting your pastures and looking for it. A lot of people that have a lot of the trouble with Perilla mint are those that kind of force their cattle to clean pasture up that maybe they should have put out hay a few days before that. Cattle, in my experience, don't particularly like Perilla mint, but they will eat it if made to. So we have to take some of those mitigation factors, and I'm going to kind of close up here. I'm going to stand on the soapbox real quick, and I hope y'all give me some latitude on this. Ashley can shut me down and mute me if need be. But I want to talk about marketing cattle real quick, because this is a time of the year when folks get their feelings hurt with checks from sale barns, and this is when everybody moans and grumbles about their checks coming in from selling these calves, selling these spring-born calves. You know, I grew up in a time whenever, and a lot of producers are still this way. A good portion of the producers in Louisiana still will pull up a calf, load it directly on a trailer, and out the gate it goes to the market, to the sale barn. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. There are people that are set up that are that's the only setup they've got, and they don't have any other choice but to pull those calves directly off those cows and send them to town. But in my mind, there's just better options. You know, this market has been stale. Vince sent in his comment to Ashley about it, calf market being soft. I use the word stale. It just seems stale. And so us as producers that are selling these spring-born calves, we've got to, and it can apply to fall calves being marketed in the late spring, early summer as well. We have to take steps. We got to step out of our comfort zone to try to make these cattle bring a little bit more. You know, a lot of times we are price takers, not price makers. And I promise Ashley, I'm not going into a whole talk about how to increase the value of your calf crop. What I specifically want to talk about is if you, and I like selling with sale barns. I think it's true price discovery. And so this is not knocking any sale barns by any means, because I'm a big fan of selling cattle through livestock through sale barns. But what I'm driving at is every sale barn in Louisiana and most outside the borders that I deal with, that producers deal with, are having some kind of backgrounded or preconditioned sale for these calves. And now I think we've talked in past news updates. Vince went into detail on a Beef Brunch Educational Series, I believe, on it, on backgrounding and preconditioning cattle. But you know, these backgrounding and preconditioning sales, they have different levels as far as what the requirements are, but the basic theme is the same. They want these cattle weaned. They want these calves to have some vaccines in them, to have kind of a herd health regimen implemented on them. And I know that to a producer that has never backgrounded or weaned calves before, it can be a daunting task. You know, you're talking about maybe setting up a little bit better pen, determining a feed source for these calves, you know, watching for health concerns, you know. It can be quite a challenging task if you've never weaned calves before. But guys, I really think it's something worthwhile to look into, because I think it is something fairly easily done that can add a few dollars a hundred to our price whenever we're selling these calves. I just think that we have to look at ways that we can increase our share of the pie on these calf sales. And I think that by participating in your local auction barns, vaccinated or preconditioned wean calf sale can be a very a big boon to you. And if we can ever help set up a program on this, you know, not everything that works, something that works for Jason may not work for me on my operation as far as weaning and preconditioning these calves. Reach out to one of us. We'd be more than happy to talk about some kind of common sense, easy ways you can get these calves weaned and get them on a health program depending on the market you're shooting for on it. But Ashley, I'm going to step off my soapbox and end it there and turn it over to y'all.
I'm going to hop on your soapbox for a second. So to add to that, just briefly, you know, depending on the sale that you target, like Lee just mentioned, I mean, I'm always pro the use of growth implants. Sorry, tongue tied there for a second. But depending on your marketing avenue, you know, growth implants can get you more yield, more pounds, which brings you more profit. And so again, it depends on your market source. That's not for every market. That's not for every sale. But if you have questions on those, as Lee mentioned, trying to figure out what's best for you, what are your other options, and trying to tailor something, just reach out to one of us, like he said. I know a lot of guys have mentioned before that they don't use implants because they felt that they got docked for it, but they were taking their calves to the auction barn and not saying anything about whether or not they use growth implants. Well, there is no price cut or anything there that's going to hurt you if you don't say you are using growth implants, or if you're not targeting a sale specific to not using them, if that makes sense. So again, just reach out to one of us there on that. And I did forget to mention, I feel like we cannot have a news update without saying army worms are still there. So Vince mentioned, still having some army worms, people prepping for ryegrass planting. He had talked to some guys that already had ryegrass in the ground. I know a lot of guys are waiting to try to get it a little bit cooler, kind of have more of a season change, hopefully get rid of some of those army worms before they get their ryegrass planted. Jason, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you for our Northeast region update and the markets.
I don't know that I can add a whole lot more than what Lee's provided. It's the weather across the north part of the state's been pretty consistent across the board. Hadn't been any major changes between northwest and northeast, other than we had some very beautiful days this past week, and as Lee said, there's a lot of folks that took advantage of that and did some fall working, and they picked a good week to do it for sure. And Lee, I also appreciate the comments you made, and to follow up on that, I visited this afternoon with a good friend of ours, Jesse McGee down at Red River. Had a producer here in the office that was looking to move some coil cows, and just trying to figure out which market to go with them, and they can provide some insight. I mean, we've said before that these coil cow prices, we're going to talk about in a minute, they're going to get softer between now and Thanksgiving. I mean, they've softened up a little bit now, and they're going to continue to get a little softer. They're definitely not going to improve a whole lot without another black swan event, God forbid. But and they're going to continue to get softer as we move towards Thanksgiving. August placements and marketings were slightly higher as we got the cattle on feed report on September the 24th, this past Friday. They were slightly higher than pre-report estimates, but within reason of the forecast that a lot of the analysts had given to us. So U.S. cattle on feed was down 1%. Cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter market in the U.S. for feedlots with a capacity of 1,000 head or more totaled 11.2 million head on September 1, 2021. That inventory was 1% below September 1, 2020, but the second highest September 1 inventory since they started that report. Placements in feedlots during August totaled 2.1 million head, which is 2% above 2020. One of the biggest things that caught most people's eye in the report, that the weight distribution of August placements. So in that cattle on feed, they also report what the placements, weight placements are, and they break those down by 6 weights, 7 weights, 8 weights, 9 weights. So the weight distribution of August placements showed an unexpected increase in placements was almost entirely in the heavyweight placements, with those 900-pound placements up 15.4% year over year. The 8 weights were also up, but the one that caught most everybody's eye was that 900-pound group, 15.4% year over year in terms of placements. And I guess in my mind that goes directly to the fact that these feeders are looking at grain prices and cost of feed in the yard, and they're trying. Most producers that are having to pay that cost of gain, they're trying to get them heavier on grass or other means, doing something at home and placing them a little bit heavier than we would in a year where we've got some pretty low grain prices. Weekly slaughter finished at 641,000 head, which is down nearly 3% from the prior week. The box beef market continues its downward trend of the past several weeks. Choice box beef closed the week at $308.75 a hundred.
We lost you. We lost your mic again.
That any better?
Yes, we got choice box beef.
So choice box beef closed the week at $308.75 a hundred. That is still 43% higher than this time last year. So even in a pandemic year, we're still running 43% higher than that. That's $11.46 a hundred lower than the prior week. The choice select spread moved almost $3 lower than the prior week at $32. So that is still almost 200% higher than last year when it was $10.06. So whenever you look at those, what was the last thing you heard, Ashley? Did my cut out
It just
again?
cut out $10. But just for a second, $10 and what?
$10.70 a hundred. I'm not for sure. I apologize. I don't know what's going on. Good internet in Farmerville. Quality grade is remaining a very influential factor in determining final price. So there is definitely some value opportunity for cattlemen in terms of premiums. For these folks that have these choice cattle to market, there is definitely out there for them, and it doesn't look like those are going to go away anytime soon. The northern fed price has narrowed in the past 2 weeks, so that premium that we normally see on those northern fed cattle is faded in the past couple of weeks. It's currently flat with the southern plains. So a light volume of trades occurred in the south. They were mostly steady, 123 to 124. Moderate fed cattle cash trade occurred in the north. And those sales were weak, so they're continuing to align themselves more with the south. So they were 123 to 125. In the 5-area feeding region, fed steer.
We got 5-area feeding region.
In the 5-area feeding region, 120 to 125. Still don't have it.
You popped back out 121 to 125. I'm guessing that was our 5 weights or 6 weights, 5 weights.
No, that's the fed steer negotiated cash sales. That's about $1 softer than the prior week. Had it confirmed on those cash negotiated cash. Had it confirmed 54,118 head. On those fed cattle, futures ended the week October down 30 cents at 122.92. December down 47 cents at 128.15, and February down 32 cents at 132.62. 5 to 600 pound steers, medium and large ones and twos, sold 143 to 159, which is $3 to $10 higher than the previous week. So if you look at these calf markets, we're just up and down, and I think that goes to what Lee's saying. We're just kind of stale. We'll be up a week, down a week, up a week, down a week, and we're just kind of stale in that pattern right now. So this is one of the weeks that we're up a little bit, but we're still 143 to 159. 7 to 800 pound feeder steers, medium and large ones and twos, so $2 to $4 higher than the previous week.
What were the price on those?
130 to 142, which is $2 to $4 higher than the previous week. That's on our 7 and 8 weights. Futures ended the week with October trading with October trading up 50 cents at 157.35. November up 47 cents at 158.57, and January up 40 cents.
January was up 40 cents at
159.60. Yeah, just keep asking. You're not bothering me. So lean cull cows averaged the week at 56 cents and a half, or 56 and a half cents, which is about 2 pennies lower compared to the previous week. And to be honest with y'all, we don't have a really good reporting week on feedstuffs. So the last week that most of our feedstuffs were reported was the week of September the 10th. So we really don't have a good solid week to report on that. I will tell you that that corn closed the week last week at $4.89 a bushel. DDGs closed the week at $200 a ton, and that's really all. We just didn't have a whole lot of USDA reports last week. Several of those reports will be picked up again this coming week. So really not a whole lot to report on feedstuffs at this time.
All right, thank you. Sometimes I wonder if we should really record these on Mondays, because I feel like we always have the Monday glitches going on when we do these. But a few events to talk about. For the most part, we're starting to kick off stock show season. I know with parish fairs and fall jackpots and heading towards state fair and all of that. But it's kind of our busy season. Can we double busy on that? But we've got our Beef Brunch webinar coming up in October. Dr. Scaglia is going to be speaking on planning grazing of winter annuals. And then really the only other event that I have listed right now, as far as producers go, is going to be the Acadiana Beef Field Day. It's going to be Saturday, October 23rd at the UL Cade farm in Lafayette. We'll get more information to y'all as that comes a little bit closer. So I believe that's all that we've got for you. Again, we'll be back with you on, I believe, October 12th for our next news update, and that will also be our monthly webinar for October. So we hope that y'all are enjoying this fall weather, and we will be back in a couple of weeks.